Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridge the Gap podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Scott.
And we just wanted to start off real quick by saying that we have gotten a lot of feedback on the socials, which we are very grateful for.
Been getting blasted on the socials this week for my defense or my stance that I'm not sure Taylor Swift is an icon yet. I'm getting blown up, but you got to listen to the whole conversation. So, unfortunately, we're only putting out snippets of the episode on all the socials so that you can see them, but then you got to go and actually watch them because there's a lot more to the conversation than we're showing in a 45-second or 1 minute snippet on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever else we are. So, yeah, I'm getting blasted. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And so for anyone who's confused on socials, we just post clips. And in the captions of every single clip that I post or that my dad posts, it has all of our socials listed in the captions. So just make sure you're reading those as well to find us on Instagram, TikTok, and everything. And then to watch the full things, we're on YouTube and Spotify. So if you just search us up on YouTube and Spotify, we should show up. It's the same logo as every other thing, where it's the white bridge with the white brick background and the blue circle. So just keep an eye out for those.
And I know this is more geared towards my audience and older, right? Because I know your generation knows all about, hey, it's in the bios and blah, blah, blah. I don't even know if I know what that means, that the links are in the bios. I know that on Facebook, our page is called Bridge the Gap Pod, right? And I know that's not the same on all of them. So at the end, we'll highlight them. I don't know, maybe you'll put a graphic on with all of them or something, but somehow go and watch it, because I didn't say that I didn't think she was an icon.
Well, don't spoil it. They need to just go and watch it.
That's true. That's true. There was more to my argument. Let's just leave it at that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's like watching a trailer for a movie.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But one thing we did ask in the last video was for people to kind of suggest stuff for us to talk about, maybe some things that people struggle talking to their parents about or vice versa. And one thing that we highlighted was pro-life versus pro-choice, where my dad and I have a little bit of a differing opinion on. And I had someone from my high school years reach out and say that she would really appreciate us covering that topic due to the fact her dad is completely pro-life and thinks she's like the devil incarnate for even disagreeing with that. So we will, I figure we can talk about that today a little bit, just to get into those harder topics that people are looking for, and try to help other people understand maybe a different perspective. So why don't you kick off with how you view the pro-life, pro-choice debacle?
Debacle. Well, that's an aggressive word. I don't know if it's a debacle. But you and I have talked about this in the past, and the interesting thing about it, which impacts the discussion, right, is just the landscape of society has changed, and it's so wishy-washy, right? In the 70s, before Roe versus Wade, abortion was a state issue. States had their own individual laws on whether or not they allowed abortion. And then it became a federal thing. And then with administration swings and how divisive and how far apart it is, it now is back into the state's hands, right? And so I think a lot of younger people just hear the current administration doesn't believe in it. No, that's not the case. They just returned the legislative decision-making back to the states and keep the federal government out of it. That's why we're the United States of America. We're not, Poland, or we're not Canada, right? There's and when I say it's fishy, and listen, we're going to be controversial on this on both sides of the fence. But it's funny because I feel like nowadays people just want to latch on to momentum, and they don't really understand why. So there are topics that people are like, it should be a state issue. And then it becomes a state issue, and they're like, oh, no, it shouldn't be a state issue. It should be a federal issue. And then, or vice versa. And I think this is one of those topics that it's like, well, there was a large segment of the population that said, why did we take this away from the states? And then we gave it to the states, and then there's still some of that population that just said, give it back to the states, that is like, well, why'd you give it back to the states? So I think it's really, really interesting how that climate is so polarizing, and how the reaction to the polarization is so emotionally charged rather than approaching it with a logical frame of mind as to why it's back to the state as opposed to being federal.
So I think a big issue that people have, especially the younger generation, when that was overturned, a lot of Gen Z were still young and minors. And so if you live in a state that has very heavy Republican influence, they kind of take it completely away. Like in the state of South Carolina, and I say kind of because I know it's not entirely like taken away.
It's not.
But in the state of South Carolina, you can't get an abortion past the 6-week mark. Where a lot of people have an issue with that is a lot of the times on pregnancy tests, unless you're going to the hospital to get it done, a lot of the at-home pregnancy tests don't even show a positive until you're at 6 weeks or post 6 weeks. So I think that's where a lot of people kind of have that issue, is like, okay, well, if I'm like, God forbid, if I'm practicing safe sex and the condom breaks, right? I have no idea that I'm pregnant until I've hit 6 weeks and, oh, all the symptoms are starting to kick in. So let me take an at-home test. Oh, shit. I have no other option. So I think that's where a lot of like the unsettling feeling of it being back in the States is like, it takes it away from people at such a like early stage that it's not even really an option at that point.
Right.
And then another thing is, Plan B is not cheap. Like everyone's like, oh, well then just take Plan B. Plan B is like $50. And like college kids don't have that money. Now, if you're not practicing safe sex, then that's something else. That's another conversation to have. But if you are, and an accident happens, then it's not cheap to just, oh, let me take a Plan B and get like, make sure, like cover my bases. So I think that's where a lot of the people who are thinking logically, that's where a lot of their disagreement with the give it back to the states is. And that's kind of where I am too.
Right.
Just because it's not, 6 weeks isn't practical. Like it's not, it doesn't make sense in my opinion.
So the interesting thing, I get it. I get it. However, so here's the counter to one point. Because I don't know if I agree that 6 months is the right time either. Let's be honest.
6
but
weeks?
Yeah, that's what I said. What did I say?
You
6
said
months? Oh, sorry. Well,
yeah, at that point, we both agree that that's not okay.
I have a map of the United States in times, right? So,
yeah.
And it's from Axios, and it's the state laws surrounding abortion timelines and stuff. And so I'm not sure I agree that 6 weeks is right either. However, I do know that this generation, meaning yours, certainly not mine, has way more access to prevent it than we did, right? Way more.
Right.
So to your point, like we didn't have Plan B.
Yeah.
We didn't. So if you are active and you have a concern between day 1 and day 42, which is 6 weeks, you have options available to you regardless if you know you are or not, right?
Right.
That's the whole point of Plan B, right? You go, oh,
well,
shit.
Plan B only works 48 hours after intercourse.
That's what I mean. So you go and you go, oh, shit, I did something I shouldn't have. Or maybe you meant to do it, but you just weren't responsible. Or we can be like a Friends episode and figure out that condoms are only 97% effective, right? So
yeah, and women's birth control is only 96%. So
right. So
if you get a day where both of your shit just isn't on par, then there's nothing you can do.
but you have options that
Yeah.
we never had, right? So if you are adult enough, let me rephrase. If you think you're adult enough to make a decision to be sexually active, and you accept the responsibility of the repercussions of your decisions, then you have an option within the 48 hours that my generation never had. Never. So although I don't agree, I'm not sure I agree that 6 weeks is the right amount of time, which, by the way, there's 18 states that are 6 weeks or fewer, right? In the United States, 18 states, I'm sorry. But I'm not saying I agree that 6 weeks is right, but I am saying you have options that are available to you to make sure it doesn't happen before you need to go to the full 6 weeks, right?
100%.
So, conversely, or contradicting that, and this is true with a lot of topics, but it's true in this one too. You know, when I was your age, it was Clinton. Clinton was in office, right? And we had just gone through George Bush, who succeeded Reagan, right? And, you know, there's differing points of view, but they were not as polarized.
Right.
Then,
yeah.
right?
Politics now is very one way
extreme.
or the other.
It's extreme, right?
100%.
And that's unfortunate because, you know, there's things that I agreed with both parties because they were pretty moderate in the grand scheme, especially compared to now, right?
Yeah.
Clinton did stuff that, you know, I mean, not to go down the political spectrum, but he deported illegal aliens or illegal citizens, whatever you want to call them, people that came here illegally, just like Republicans did. And, you know, like there was a lot more of the gray that both parties were involved in. And now it's almost like sacrilegious to say, "Oh, no, we can kind of agree on this," right? Like it's almost like you have to be the polar opposite of each other.
Yeah.
Which is true with this. And I think the 6 week, and I don't know this, and I'm sure somebody will freaking blast us for this conversation, and they'll probably tell me all sorts of stuff, but I think the 6 weeks is a response to certain states wanting 0 time frames.
Yeah.
And I certainly do not agree with late-term abortions in any way, shape, or form. And there are currently 8 states that have 0 defined limit. And that is, I think, horrible. Now, when I was growing up, the law was the first trimester, right? There are 18 states that are 24 weeks or later, and there's 8 states that are no defined limit. So the majority of the states, right? 18 plus 8 is 26.
Why are you asking me to do math?
So the 26 out of 50 states are saying it's okay to have it at 6 months or later.
Okay, and so this is good... Yeah.
That is where I totally disagree because... For all the reasons I already said, if you made a mistake, you have plan B. You can do that within the first 48 hours. No harm, no foul. If you don't get your cycle in 4 weeks and you take a pregnancy test between 6 and you don't take a pregnancy test between 6 and 24 weeks, I don't know.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't be a parent anyway. Let's be honest.
Right.
Like, come on. But the majority of people know. Like, we knew when you were conceived and we knew when your brother was conceived, meeting your mom and I, within like the first 6-8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So let me just close my point. I think that the 6 weeks is contradicting the other angle or the other, I don't want to say political because I know this is tied to politics and I hate that because I think it's a human thing.
It is. Yep.
But the half of the humans that think it's okay to do it after 6 months is wrong, in my opinion. And so I think the immediate reaction is, okay, well then we're only going to do it 6. It's almost like I'll see your 6 weeks and I'll raise you to no limit. You know what I mean? It's almost like a reaction rather than thinking let's think logically about this, right? Let's like, and I don't know if, and I agree, Lauren. I don't know if 6 weeks is logically right,
Right.
but I certainly don't, and I feel very strongly that anything after 12 weeks is certainly not right, because you have all the time in the world between 0 and 12 weeks to make a decision,
Okay.
and you have the ability.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what you said. And what I definitely agree on is that I think it's unbelievably upsetting that it's a political thing,
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, it is a human thing. And I think a lot of people, the reason I feel so upset, so I'll go ahead and say now, I'm pro-choice completely, because I may not agree how people exercise that, but I'm pro-choice because I would never tell somebody else what to do with their body ever. um and so even if I don't agree with how late you're getting an abortion, that's your choice. There's nothing that I can do about that, and nobody should be able to tell you what to do about that. I don't agree with it. Like you said, I think after first trimester, you've had enough time to figure that out. So if you're doing it afterwards, I definitely don't agree with that. Um, but I'm just pro-choice in the fact that I wouldn't want anyone to tell me what to do. So I'm not going to side with people that want to tell others what to do. And I think a lot of the backlash too is it's just not, it's not fair to women, because there's no laws out there stating, oh, men have to get vasectomies, like men have to do this. It's women are the only ones that can get pregnant. And so yes, even though most of the time it's a consensual act, I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Men can mess with the condom, women can forget their birth control, this and that, but it just feels like they're trying to control human nature. And like, because me personally, if I was consensually having sex with somebody, I'm on birth control, and the guy was wearing a condom, if an accident happened and I didn't notice until I missed my period 4 weeks later, then I'm going to take a test. But if I'm past the 6 week mark, that puts me in a really, really hard position, because I also don't believe in bringing children into the world if you're not emotionally, mentally, or financially ready. And really, no one's ever 100% ready to have a kid. It's like impossible. But you're at least at a mature enough point, like you and mom. You guys were at a mature enough point where you go, hey, we don't know if we're 100% ready for this, but we're definitely ready to give it our best. And we're financially ready to give it our best. So that just puts me in a really bad spot. And so that's where I am just pro choice, because it's not fair to tell people, hey, you don't have a shot at any other option except for adoption. But I still have to go through the damn pregnancy. And the more I learn about pregnancy, that shit sounds like a torture mechanism. I don't care what anybody says. The more I learn about it, the more I learn about birth as a whole, I'm like, this is unreal. So it's hard, because like you said, we both don't agree with late term abortions, but I also don't agree with people saying you have no option. This is it. So that's where it kind of like, it's
Yes,
such a sticky situation,
it
especially because
is.
people will hear you say, "Oh, I'm pro-choice," and they're like, "Oh, so you're okay with murdering babies?" Whoa, whoa! I never said all that. Listen, I never said all that. By the end of the first trimester, that thing is barely even a blab. Okay, so I never said
Mm,
all that. But
it's more than a blob at the first trimester.
whatever. But by the end
I'm
of the
just saying.
first trimester, if you do it after that, I don't agree with that. But what I think a lot of people really don't agree with the pro-life people's argument is they want zero option at all, and I think that that's really unfair when it comes to human rights and health and just everything else.
Right. So you said a lot that I need to unpack. Number one, when I was your age, I was 100% pro choice. 100%. And I still am to an extent. And once again, I'll just go back to how I was growing up. It was the first trimester. So that made sense to me, right? And I still think pretty solidly about that. I don't agree with anything afterwards. And the thing that frustrates me with people that disagree with me on that, and they can never answer this question. I've seen a ton of videos on it. In every state, I believe, if a woman is pregnant, regardless if it's 4 weeks pregnant or 40 weeks pregnant, if she is killed by an estranged husband, boyfriend, I don't know, lover, random act, then that person that committed that crime is charged with double homicide.
Mm-hmm.
But those same people will say, yeah, 100%. But then they have zero problem saying, no, it's okay to abort a kid at any time. And I think that is so wrong on every level, right? So in one area of the world or law, we recognize that a baby in a womb is a human.
Yeah.
Right? But on the other side, they want to say that it's not. And that contradiction is ridiculous to me.
I think if you're going to charge someone with double homicide if a woman's pregnant, it has to be reasonable. Like if it's 4 weeks, that's not double homicide. Like homegirl probably didn't even know if it that it was there. Like the cell itself is not even aware. Like
no, just so you know, because I got to speak facts. The heart starts beating at 22 to 23 days after conception. It has a heartbeat. So it's not a blob. There's a human organ, which we all need. It's the best. It's the most, it's the second most important organ in our bodies besides our brain is functioning at 22 to 23 days, right? So, does that mean it's alive? I don't know, right? Like there's all this argument. I get it. I get that. But by the end of the 6th week, which is where we go back to, the heart rate is usually between 110 to 160 beats per minute. So that's a pretty strong argument to say there's something living there that is killed, right? And so if you kill a woman and she has a living being inside of her, and you charge the offender with double homicide, then how do you sit there on the other side of the aisle and say, no, that's not killing anybody? Well, no, it is. So you have to come to your own terms of morality to understand where you stand on it. And I understand why people say absolutely not. I don't believe in it at all. I understand that because within less than a month, for all intents and purposes, there's a living being. I'm not saying human, but there's a living being in your body, right? So I understand why people are adamant about that, okay? Mm-hmm. Do I agree with them? No, I've already said I believe in some level of pro-choice, right? But I totally disagree with people that say, you know what? It's been 35 weeks. My husband and I are now getting divorced. I'm aborting the kid. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a kid. I know that. You know what I mean? Ryan was 2 weeks early. He was 38 weeks. Yeah. And so for
and it's also so dangerous for the woman themselves to get an abortion that late. So it's not even it's putting yourself at more of a risk than anything, because it's not safe really at that point to I mean childbirth, the whole child process is not safe.
It's crazy.
But at least we have medical things to help it along. But yeah, it's not safe at that point to get an abortion, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I just want to make sure that I unpack that a little bit and add a different perspective on it. You also said you don't believe in no choice, right? Like you absolutely cannot.
I don't.
Which thankfully in this country, there's not a single state in this country that has that law. Not a single one. There is not one single state that has outlawed it 100%. Right? Yeah. So, and I just want to clarify that because I remember when Roe versus Wade, the whole thing, and people were just up in arms. You're taking our way. No. They gave it back to the states, and every single state has a law now. Because I can understand the panic in that, right?
Yeah.
Luckily for you, not that
No,
we'll ever get
not
there,
me. Not me,
but
but anybody else who needs it.
we have 2 states. We're 2 states away, so about a 6-hour drive from a state that allows it after 6 weeks. So if there was ever an issue, we have the ability. And there's a lot of states that are like that are a couple states away, right? So worst case scenario, but listen, you make a big decision, you have to be able to make the big decisions afterwards. And that's why kids shouldn't be having sex until they're older. I mean, and we can talk about what we think that age is later. But the other thing is, I find it very interesting in the contradiction once again, when you say you shouldn't be able to tell anybody what they should do with their bodies. And that's where the vaccine stuff all came in, right? Because we all just went through the COVID stuff. And millions of people lost their jobs because they were forced to do something to their bodies, or they suffered the consequences, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with that either, right? So I agree with you. I don't like people telling me what I need to do.
I'll do it if I want to. It's my body.
With my own being, I get it. The thing that's challenging to me about the abortion thing, though, it's hard because I understand only a woman can get pregnant. I get it. And I haven't had to experience this, but I did experience it through a friend who was with a woman, and she got pregnant, and he was excited. He wanted to be a dad. He wanted to be a dad. She did not want to be a mom. And so she aborted the kid, or she aborted the pregnancy. I guess I should say that the correct way. And he has zero rights in that decision at all. And that's sad to me, because I understand that it's a woman's body and the woman has the right to do what she wants. We just exhausted that argument or that conversation. But being a male, and I made good decisions and married your mom, and we've been together for 24 years and almost 25, and we'd done things the right way, and we decided to start a family together at the time. And, so I understand that that's not how everybody lives. I get that.
Yeah.
But if it was different, and even if we weren't together, let's say we went out for 6 months, a year, she got pregnant towards the tail end, she decides to abort the pregnancy. I just lost my chance at being a dad for the first time. Like that. Yeah. That's sad, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of deadbeat dudes out there that are like, we're not together, it's not mine. And there's a ton of whole other arguments about that stuff. But there is a population too of men that get excited when their partner gets pregnant, but they have zero say in it. And in certain areas, their men are completely disregarded during the whole process. And and I get that. I know there's a lot of bad marriages out there, but they detach the man from the pregnancy responsibility almost from the beginning, unless you have cool doctors. But in the hospital, your mom was in labor forever, and then we had to do an emergency C-section for you. So they wheeled your mom, and
they didn't listen to her in the first place.
Right. And then they left me in the room. And your mom literally sedated, not, kind of out of it, was like, "Are you guys going to get my husband?" And so by the time they got me, she was already cut open.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, I never wanted to see anything below the curtain, naturally or surgically. But so I use that point because I wish people acknowledge that more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm a man. I'm a 50-year-old man. I have grown a lot. I'm an older person. So you learn a lot between 20 and 50, clearly. And I never took a second to think about that when I was your age. But as I've gotten older and I'm a father, and hopefully I'll be a grandfather someday, I wish this argument wasn't so black and white, where it's, nope, it's the woman. Nope, it's the woman. Because there are men out there in this world that really, truly care and want to be. as much as maybe the woman or the mom does. And I think that gets discredited a lot. So I just wanted to unpack some of that because I
Yeah.
don't think people take the time to think about that. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I agree. I think that if you are in a partnership, legally married or, dating for a really long time, engaged, whatever, I definitely think that is then a question of character, respectfully, if you don't discuss that with your partner. Like if I were engaged, let's say it's 2 years down the line, I'm engaged, graduated from college, all that stuff. And which is so unrealistic right now for my love life, but we don't have to talk about that. Um but let's just say hypothetically and I got pregnant but I wasn't fully ready. I would still sit my partner down and go, "Here's the situation. Here are our options. How are you feeling?" Because and I think if you don't take your partner into consideration at all, that's just a question of character.
Hmm.
Um Now
Or
if you
manipulation.
and gaslighting, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, that's a character issue, not a sex issue.
Cool.
Or gender
I can
issue, whatever.
I can get on board on that. You're right. I
Yeah.
think I would like how shitty of a person are you to be with someone, let's say for 5 years, and let's say you were trying, right? I know people that can't get pregnant right away, right? We struggled with your brother. We were quick.
I don't want to
Your
know that.
your brother. I mean, there was literally a point where your mom and I were like, maybe we should buy a boat because this is not going like it should.
No.
We did not buy a boat because we had your brother. But
I would have taken the boat. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But there's a lot of people that try for years and years, and it puts such a strain on their relationship, And then, like, how shitty would it be if you're already on that downward spiral of breaking up, and then she gets pregnant, but you're already decided that you're not going to stay together because the stress of life or the stress of the situation. There's a million things, right? Financial, emotional. There's all sorts of reasons to break up, right? Could you, like, how shitty of a person are you that if you found out you got pregnant after you and your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever partner decided that it was just too much, life is too hard, we're going our separate ways, and then you find out you got pregnant and you abort it without even considering your partner?
Yeah, and that's why I say at the end of the day, I think that part is character. I think that's a different conversation than pro-choice, pro-life. But yeah, I think that boils down to your character. And then one last point that I do want to make sure we cover is regardless of the state, regardless of what you believe, I think everybody should have allowances for certain situations. Victims of rape, sexual assault, incest, I think all of those should be allowances regardless of your pro-choice, pro-life. And I've had conversations with people that are pro-life that go, "Well, no, that's God's plan." And I'm like, that's where I can't that's where it's hard for me to have respect for your opinion. Because incest is usually manipulation and people don't know any better, especially if they're from low education, low income places. Rape, obviously, that should be a dead giveaway that is not okay. So when people still have that point of no, it's not allowed at all, even if it's rape or incest victim, that's where I kind of have a hard time even having respect for you, because that's where it comes into human rights and stuff like that. So regardless of your opinion, and I know you feel the same, I just wanted to put it out there that this is how we agree and think.
Yeah.
That there should be certain allowances regardless of the situation and even age. Like if you've got a 12-year-old coming in there pregnant, y'all need to be looking into that. Because now listen, if they straight up are like, "Yeah, I had sex with my middle school boyfriend," then listen, that's after that, that's their responsibility. But if it's like a 10 to 12-year-old coming in with their parents, that needs to be looked into, because something about that seems wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, God, we could talk for hours, and maybe the next episode we continue. But there's a lot to that, right? Anybody that's so absolute about everything is absolutely uninformed. That's what I. If you are an absoluter, I know that's not a word, but like it could be about this, right? Absolute no, or COVID vaccine. Absolutely, you got to take it. Absolutely this. Absolutely, blah, blah, blah. Like if you're absolute about everything, then you're going to be wrong, you know. And so I agree with you. I think there's circumstances and things that need to be weighed, and I think you hit another point real quick too. If the kid is if a child, and everybody is a child to me almost at this point, but if you get pregnant at that young of an age, then you better be in there with your parents, because there's a lot of states now that are arguing that the parents don't even have a right to be in there. And I struggle with that too. And that's medically, like even for you and your brother as teenagers. And so there's a whole nother topic that we can talk about that too, right? Not just dad's rights, but parental rights.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think there's always extenuating circumstances. And that's why I think we're in a spot now that we may not agree with every single state's that's 6 weeks, even though we live in one. At least there's no absolutes, right? There are 8 that are no limits, and I totally disagree with that. I will die on that sword. I think that's just wrong. So anyway, we kind of agree on some things. We kind of disagree on some things with this. It's a challenging conversation you and I have had before. So once again, you know, this is why we did it. We talk about this stuff as a daughter and a dad, which, as I'm learning, is very unique on some of the topics you and I talk about. So hopefully this helped people understand where a 50-year-old guy came from, or is coming from, father, and where a 20-year-old young adult college student comes from. And I just encourage everybody, before you react emotionally, just sit and digest things. And if you don't know, then look it up and research it. And I've had this argument. I used to be very active on social media, and I would say, hold on, read first, then react. Pause, then react, right? So I hope people with this topic, or any topic that we're going to talk about that is challenging and could be deemed controversial, just pause after you listen to this and read. Just think first and have a productive dialogue, right? And that's what you and I always try and do, even though sometimes we get pretty emotional at each other.
Yeah. That was a good closer. I think to follow up on that, I hope everybody, if they are going through something that they don't know how to talk about, has a safe space to talk about it.
Yes.
Even if you're a
There's
listener,
so
and
many resources out there.
And even if you don't feel comfortable with those and you just want to talk to a stranger, I'll tell you right now, I will be there. I don't know how much help I will be, but even if you just need to get it out in a text message and be like, hey, I just need you to hear me out, my DMs are open. And I plug my social media on a few of our videos, but when I do the wrap up with everything, I'll put mine in there. So I hope everyone who doesn't have a place to go, just know I will answer, and that there are resources out there for you to get help, regardless of its mental health, Planned Parenthood, anything like that. There are options out there. And I hope today, talking to my dad about this kind of topic, helped the person that wanted us to discuss the topic. And it's just a reminder again that we are not shy to talk about the harder topics. So if there is one that you do need help with, we are open to suggestions and we will take those. So to close out, my personal Instagram is just _Lauren and then Gray with 2 Y's. So I will plug those. The Instagram for the podcast is _bridgethegap with 2 P's. The TikTok is bridgethegap.pod. And our YouTube, if you use the @ symbol in the search engine, if you go to youtube.com and in the search bar, you can put @bridgethe_gap. Gap, and it'll take you there. The links are also in my personal bio, the Bridge to the Gap Instagram bio, the TikTok bio, and the Facebook bio, which my dad said the Facebook earlier, but I will still list here. And the Spotify is the same thing. So I'll include all of those handles, and we hope to continue seeing you guys, and we are enjoying all the engagement you guys have given us so far. And yeah, that's all I've got for this week.
Yeah. Yeah, and my Instagram is Scott SCOTT.gray GRAY.12. So if you want to reach out to me that way, you can. And like I said, the Facebook is Bridge the Gap Pod POD. So you certainly can message there. I also share any posts from that on my Facebook page as well, which I'm Scott Gray. Pretty simple to find. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. And good topic. We might have to continue this one because we hit on a lot of stuff. We started getting into state right versus federal. We got into men versus women rights. We got into all sorts of stuff. So if there's other stuff like that you want to talk about, please let us know. And like you said, hopefully we help the one that suggested this, because at least maybe understanding a dad's point of view. Maybe she doesn't agree with it still, which is fine, but maybe hopefully it enlightened and helped her understand it.
Yep. All right, well, thanks for tuning in again, you guys. Next week's episode, I'll have a different background, which is so exciting. But thank you guys for tuning in again, and we will see y'all next Thursday.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.